Berkeley's going to convince us that there's no physical stuff out there in the world. Well, we need to know what stuff actually is. And so we know that there is a relatively short list of things we can sense immediately. And so Berkeley wants to say that if you take away all that stuff, there's nothing left. And this seems a little bit crazy, but now think about it. Picture an apple, for example. Take away all the sensible stuff about it. So take away its color, its shape, its smell, its taste, how it feels when you hold it, and all that stuff. Now try to picture an apple without all of that. There's nothing left, right? Because without all of your sense data, that's the only way you know there's an apple there. Right? It's not like it can beam directly into your mind. It's not like you have some separate intuition about it. The only things you know about the apple are things that come from sight, from smell, from hearing, from touch, right? That come from your senses. And so this seems crazy because we think that stuff must exist separately from how we perceive it, right? And we started to see some of this idea in Locke with secondary qualities. Because if it's not true, then existence is just being perceived. And this is actually what Berkeley wants to argue. So let's see how he gets there. He wants to use an example as heat to try and prove this. And so Hylas and Philinus will both agree that intense heat is very painful. And obviously, there can't be any pain that isn't sensed. Now think about this. What would it even mean to have pain that you don't feel? Right? Pain is just feeling something that just feels like pain. I don't even know how to explain what pain is other than that feeling of pain, right? So you can't have pain that you don't experience, right? Somebody can't be like, hey, by the way, you're in pain even though you don't feel pain right now. That's just crazy. And so they want to say, well, if intense heat, right, really, really strong heat just is pain, right? That's how we feel it, is just intense pain. Then that can't exist separately from the mind, right? You need to have a mind to experience it for it to exist at all. In the same way that pain can't exist without a mind, right? You can't have pain that you don't feel. And where do you feel pain? In your mind, right? You might feel it as if it's in your hand, as if it's in your foot, something like that, right? But you need to have a mind to do that, right? The nerves all talk back to your brain. We can roughly equate the brain and the mind, etc., etc. What about pleasant heat? Well, it works just the same, but for pleasure, right? Could there be unexperienced pleasure? Could someone say, look, you don't feel happy or pleasurable right now, but things are pleasurable? No, that's crazy, right? You might realize, oh yeah, I actually do feel some, but then you're feeling it. So this is maybe not so crazy. Here's maybe an even better proof. You didn't quite buy that last one, and some of you probably done this before. There's an experiment that involves hot and cold hands. So take 3 bowls of water. You need 1 bowl of very hot water, 1 of very cold water, and 1 of room temp. So now put your hands, your left hand, say, in the really hot water, and your right hand in the really cold water, and wait, say, a minute, until one hand is really hot and one hand is really cold. Now put both of your hands into this 3rd bowl of room temperature water, and the very same water that's only one temperature, right, will feel really hot to the cold hand and really cold to the hot hand. Berkeley says that doing this can prove that there's no actual heat or cold in the water, right? The water has no absolute temperature, it's just how it feels to us. It's all relative to our minds, to our sensations. If you're not convinced, here's another analogy, if you don't buy this heat thing. Imagine pricking yourself in the finger with a pin, right? So you just draw a little bead of blood. It hurts, right? It causes a sensation of pain in your mind. Well, fire causes a sensation of heat in a very similar way. Now, where is the pain, right? Is it in you or is it in the pin? It's crazy to say it's in the pin, right? Pins aren't full of pain. That's ridiculous, right? The pain is in you. You're the one feeling it, and you couldn't, right? It's not like if you weren't around, the pin would just have a bunch of pain in it waiting to be stuck into you. That's crazy, right? So Berkeley wants to say the same thing about heat and fire, right? Fire makes you feel heat, but the heat that you feel isn't actually in the fire. It's just your sensation when you're close to it. In the same way that when you get pricked with a pin, you feel pain, but the pain isn't in the pin. Well, when you're near a really hot fire, you feel heat, but the heat actually isn't in the fire. So strangely enough, the fire isn't actually hot. So Berkeley wants to talk next about a whole slew of different other sensations, and we can go through these fairly quickly. So he's going to say next he wants to talk about tastes and odors, and he wants to say these ones are much like pleasure and pain. So a good taste is pleasurable, a bad one is sort of painful. This might seem like a little bit of a stretch, but think about something that's really bitter, really sour, really hot. That sort of hurts. He wants to say just like heat, these sensations are in us. They're not actually in the things we taste. So strangely enough, sugar isn't sweet. It just makes us taste sweetness. And for example, things taste different to different people. For example, to some people, cilantro is delicious. To some people, it tastes like soap. I'm in the soap camp. It's the same thing, right? It should taste the same to everybody if it's objectively in it, but no, it tastes different to everybody. We'll talk more in the next video.